All right, kids. In December of 2008, former President George W. Bush was holding a news conference in Iraq with their prime minister when Muqtada al-Zaidi stood up and threw both of his shoes at what proves to be America's weapon of mass destruction. When he threw his first shoe, Zaidi shouted, "This is a goodbye kiss from the Iraqi people, dog." And this is from the widows, the orphans, and those who were killed in Iraq with the second. The BBC says his protest made him a hero for many Iraqis, but he was convicted of assaulting a foreign leader. He served 9 months of a 12-month prison sentence. Zaidi also became a symbol of anti-imperialism. Additionally, his legacy includes standing in an election for parliament in Iraq. Plus, the best thing about Twitter is that whenever you mention the time someone threw a shoe at Bush in Iraq, the actual guy who did it responds. And here he is, quote tweet, "Thank you, sir. If I could nominate a Supreme Court justice, I'd pick that dude who threw the shoe at George W. Bush. Threat or a promise? I'm going to put George Bush in jail. George W. Bush, the war criminal. Zaidi, thank you for this. Guaranteed 50,000 likes? You're welcome, my dear." This video from The Guardian UK said that prior to the shoot to the Bush protest in Baghdad, Muqtada al-Zaidi was a struggling journalist who only owned 2 pair of shoes. These and the others, which were later destroyed by US troops. We'll get back to him way later because he shouldn't be idolized. Yet, in more recent news, someone else stood for what they believed in. 10 toes down. Their hunger for justice consumed them too. So much so, they couldn't even eat.
It's fucking God! It's fucking God! He cooked him! He cooked him!
When President Donald Trump announced a surge of federal officials to help DC police fight violent crime and later mobilized the National Guard, Charles Dunn, 37, threw his, I should say a sandwich to make it seem like he threw somebody's sandwich at a federal agent. Turns out, Dunn was a Department of Justice Criminal Division employee. He was arrested twice, fired from the DOJ, and will be charged with a felony. And this DC occupation took place after Big Balls got beat up by preteens. So today, let's talk about the ways in which Republicans are rationalizing this. In the wake of Washington, D.C.'s total violent crime for 2024 being down 35% from 2023 and is the lowest it has been in over 30 years, according to Trump's Department of Justice. To counter that, conservatives come with vibes, not stats, graphs, or data. In other words, feelings over facts. I brought my family to DC for the Cherry Blossom Festival. The first thing I saw was a gang of youths driving ATVs down the street, one of whom was doing a wheelie. So forgive me if I doubt that crime is down. Wheelie equals crime in this equation. And before I continue, sandwiched in between all of this is a necessary distraction from an infamous list and black book and flight logs and such. Tariffs, pushing prices for groceries and goods higher, and don't forget, a lot of bread is being broken to fund this militarized police force. And what are we gonna do with our crumbs?
I just spent $19.46 on a foot-long Subway sandwich. What the hell, dude? $19.46 for one sandwich.
Criminal. Subway for charging that much for meat and cheese that's been made in a chemistry lab, and this man for paying for it. Go to jail, everybody. The price for food, groceries, and goods is still high. And I was told that this would be taken care on day 1, which was a lot of days ago. Anyways, one of the main arguments against a crime rate trending downward for 30 years and for U.S. military occupation came from this headline: DC police commander suspended, accused of changing crime statistics, which was posted by the Charlie Kirks of the world. And by the way, back that blue, Chuck. Tell your followers and subscribers that police are lying. Charlie, who admits to going to New York City not too long ago and never feeling safe. Meanwhile, every blue-haired they-them liberal arts grad barista who actually lives there has been toughing it out. Must not have read that article. It said, the Metropolitan Police Union claims supervisors in the department manipulate crime data to make it appear violent crime has fallen considerably compared to last year. 1 year. MPD and every other major city in America would have to have been doing this since the 90s in order to disprove our point. It goes to show they don't care about numbers.
They say that, murders have gone down from 180 last year, 83 last year, on track to only 170 this year. Only the Democrats would think 170 murders is something to celebrate and doesn't need any intervention.
How pro-life do you have to be to avoid acknowledging the 10 to 13 people being saved year over year by pretending like the Dems are celebrating deaths instead of lives being spared? As for the intervention, again, it's already happening and has been happening for decades across several different presidential administrations. Just 2 weeks ago, I made a video predicting that Trump and police were going to take credit for crime declining. They don't deserve it. And I mentioned how various sources say crime in Columbus has declined. Community groups are once again aiming to keep homicides below 100 for the first time since 2014. I'm not saying we should be satisfied, but we can be happy if that goal is achieved, right? I mean, come on. And I recognize that crime is happening and there are real victims.
I can tell you firsthand here in downtown D.C. where we work, right here around our bureau, just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. 1 person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen.
That's awful. Terrible. Nobody should go through that. The news anchor, Kyra Phillips, will go on to say that her attacker was homeless, half-dressed, and wasn't in his clear mind. Shouldn't that be an appeal to do something about housing and mental health? No, not on the center right. That's rough. It's not up to me to convince anyone to feel safe in any city while walking down the street at night or whatever. That's not the point. The National Guard doesn't need to be in Washington, D.C., especially not right now. I mean, I doubt this is an actual emergency. This administration has abused that power while declaring more emergencies than any other president has in any single year. And it's only been 7 months. And the Washington Post is calling into question exactly where troops are patrolling. Kind of seems like they're sightseeing. And if anybody's argument is graphs and maps can be manipulated, well, they're telling you that humans are manipulative. People lie. Numbers aren't fudging themselves up. Experiences can be faked and memories fade. With that said, somebody's looking like a PAB again, and it ain't the liberals that they call weak.
Senator, are you scared walking around Washington, D.C. these days?
I walk around all the time. I wake up early in the morning sometimes and take a nice walk as the sun is rising around some of the Capitol and the other monuments and things, and I feel perfectly safe. They're full of it. Look, here's what they've done, Aaron. Plain and simple. Donald Trump wants to distract.
I'm certain Chuck Schumer has security detail with him at all times. He's still not sure of what to do with Jasmine Crockett. But this brings me to politicians who aren't scared but tell others that they need to be. I was going to make this current episode about conservative men proudly frightened of everything, and I've already shown a few examples. However, I noticed a small pattern. J.D. Vance said in front of steelworkers that downtowns in Akron, Canton, and Columbus were lawless. He used to live here and has gone on vacations in Vermont, Massachusetts, and California. Wants to go to Hawaii. All blue states that MAGA calls hellholes. During a town hall in Cincinnati, Vivek Ramaswamy, who is currently running for governor of Ohio, talked about ending the epidemic of violent crime. That's not what epidemic means. And as part of his cultural awakening, he discussed requiring students to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Here he is at Marcella's, a restaurant in the Short North neighborhood of Columbus. near downtown. And Frank LaRose is similar. He's campaigning to become state auditor. He mocks the DC violent crime has hit a 30-year low stat, saying anybody who's traveled there in the last 5 years knows better. Okay, here he is apparently not knowing better while on the DC Metro earlier this year. Shout out to the Ohio Rooster for some of that info. Look, the overall theme of this thing is throwing sandwiches or shoes at people in power, but I'm not telling you to do that when you see these men in public, only because sandwiches and shoes can be expensive and evidently folks don't have more than one pair. It takes sacrifice for sure. I am, though, telling you that there is another way to protest.
Shame! 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 Shame!
Y'all laughing, but that's the truth though. We really talking real shit.
These terrible takes. You're not from the DMV. That doesn't mean crime isn't decreasing. Washington, D.C.'s murder rate is higher than some other cities. Crime is decreasing. There was a robbery the other night. I saw it on the news. Crime is decreasing. Speaking of, if you or someone you know watches right-wing media or believes everything that comes from the White House, sit down or sit them down here. Let's talk. I'll do a point-by-point breakdown of what the press secretary has claimed. I won't even put graphics in this corner like I usually would. I'm not going to resort to name calling anymore. So here's 6 seconds to set up.
Overnight, there were 45 criminal arrests made for assault, second and first degree. There were arrests made for the distribution of illegal drugs and narcotics that have now been removed off of the streets.
Arrests do not mean that crime has been committed.
There were 3 illegal firearms that were seized.
Good, yet adding firearm regulations across the country, in red states in particular because there are more gun deaths there, will help keep guns out of the wrong hands on the front end, so police will have to take less of them on the back end.
And in addition to that, there were 29 illegal aliens who were removed off of Washington, D.C. streets last night, many of whom had final orders of removal.
Also, those undocumented individuals are often picked up by ICE at their jobs or when getting their legal documents together. Arresting them doesn't decrease crime. Plus, they commit less crime than American-born peoples.
And the residents of Washington, maybe not the journalists because they don't want to admit President Trump is right who live here, but the residents agree, according to a Washington Post poll, 65% of D.C. residents say that crime is a very serious problem in the District of Columbia.
I wonder why D.C. residents think crime is out of control.
Crime has been totally out of control in the city.
Oh, the media tells them that crime is out of control. And since Fox News is the most popular, most watched network, they're mainstream media. I went looking for that Washington Post poll that Caroline Levitt brought up, and I also came across this article from Breitbart claiming a poll from far left Washington Post taken a mere 3 months ago annihilates the corporate media Democratic Party talking point that Washington, D.C. is safe. And we understand that 91% of people saying that the crime problem in Washington, D.C. was extremely/very serious isn't the same as proof that crime is happening, let alone more often, right? Again, that's evidence of feelings, not facts, in a country that regularly says that crime is a bigger problem than it actually is. They brought 6 feds with them who are in and around the Capitol, statues, and monuments. They'll probably say they're freeing up the DC police to arrest a guy who threw a sandwich, and they think they're doing something.
And the president's message to the criminals was, if you spit, we hit. Well, we didn't quite do that the other night when an individual went up to one of the federal law enforcement officers and started jumping up and down, screaming at him, berating him, yelling at him. And then he took a Subway sandwich about this big and took it and threw it at the officer. He thought it was funny. Well, he doesn't think it's funny today because we charged him with a felony, assault on a police officer. And we're going to back the police to the hilt. So there, stick your Subway sandwich somewhere else.
Embarrassing. One of the arguments from the left when it comes to this federal crackdown in DC and whether it will be a model for other cities is, why didn't Trump call for the National Guard during January 6th? And that's the question Mehdi Hassan from Zateo asked News Nation. Mehdi loves debates and he's good at them. I'm not going to play the audio though, but just look at the host losing his mind. Mehdi, my dude's got to say what he's got to say, then throw something at him. Well, hurl insults at him. I'm not debating about whether Nancy Pelosi was responsible for the lack of military presence during Trump's attempted coup with people who are okay with J6ers being released from prison. Trump might hire one of them, this dude, for a job with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, calling him a bystander so he can fudge up numbers like I said. This from a side of the aisle that's for law and order until they're not.
So I don't care if Herschel Walker paid to abort endangered baby eagles. I want control of the Senate.
I don't give a shit about Trump getting handsy with somebody 20 years ago.
Trump is blocking witnesses.
I don't care.
Oh.
In the midst of me loving how every time you say guy who threw a shoe at George W. Bush, the guy who threw the shoe at George W. Bush quote tweets it with "that's me," to which he replied, "That's my honor, by the way." It turns out that Zaid is accused of beating his wife and is homophobic, making him a perfect GOP politician. Do I need to play this clip of registered sex offender Lawrence Taylor saying he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's here to serve? Or can we get to the meat of the matter?
I'm just proud to be on this team. I don't know why. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing, but I'm here to serve, and I'm here to serve you. Okay, so I'm gonna do the best I can for as long as I can. Thank you very much.
Herschel Walker, now him.
You know, maybe we could all learn a thing or two from those sandwiches.
We gonna be all right.